the fact that like what happened in Game 7 has to weigh on their minds. If they don't use it as motivation to improve, they've wasted 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was really disappointing to watch. I just wanted to touch on it briefly. Seeing Kawhi and Paul George just toss up brick after brick.
It was embarrassing, man. I couldn't believe it.
It was shocking to watch.
I couldn't believe it.
Meanwhile, Denver was just on a roll.
It made me feel really sick watching Paul George brick.
It made me sick
constantly.
I think a lot of people are off their bandwagon, so to speak, for obvious reasons. I mean, they lost.
I was on it, and I'm off it.
I was way on it.
Look, blaming Doc Rivers for the Clippers, I don't think does their off-season disappointment justice. I can't blame Doc Rivers for the way that team fell
Not
apart.
entirely, no. Paul George might, but we can't.
Yeah, Paul George came out really hard against Doc Rivers and basically said, it's his fault. Like this whole thing, everything that's happened since I got here,
kind of threw him under the bus.
Is Doc's fault.
Yeah, the bus dragged him for a couple kilometers.
I can't get on board with that.
It doesn't seem fair. There's more to it than that.
Man, there were a lot of reports that came out after him. Being in LA, you're going to get that kind of, feedback and discussion coming out of LA. So the issues that Montrezl Harrell had with Paul George were vocal.
Everybody kind of had a little bit of a problem.
I think, has had a problem with Paul George as well. And he's a guy that fits into every roster and doesn't say a peep. So I have to say that there's more going on in LA Clipperland than what we will ever know.
Most likely.
But I don't really see them being the top team in the West. I don't think they even get close to coming past the Lakers unless they add a point guard, and then it's all about the coaching. And Ty Lue is not a NBA coach that can take you to the finals. So
unless he has LeBron. And that was actually a take I had here. I want to see what he can do without LeBron.
I agree. I'm interested to see what he can do. My take would be that they don't make the finals. I don't think they make the Western Conference finals.
Okay.
I think they get knocked out in the second round.
Quite possible.
And I think it'll probably be at the hands of Luka's Mavericks.
Revenge game.
Yeah.
Revenge series.
Yeah,
that's a fair take. I think the thing with the Clippers is it's a big high-pressure season, make-or-break type of season.
100%.
Because major implications based on what happens this season. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Serge Ibaka, arguably their three, can leave for nothing.
Yeah.
The Clippers will be left with absolutely zero.
And the amount of assets they gave up.
Oh, my God. Absurd. The Thunder, I mean, we talked about draft picks in last episode and how they're compiling them. But
the Thunder could be like,
Clippers
those draft
nothing.
picks could go through the roof in value. If the Clippers lose all those assets.
Turn into trash.
Then they're the bottom of the league.
If the Clippers turn into trash.
Comfortably.
The Thunder will probably draft another superstar at some point.
Yeah.
Just based on
There's
the
a
numbers.
couple coming up too, so.
Yeah, and I still think Sam Presti overrates first-round picks, but that particular haul he got from the Clippers was absurd. Well, and it was at the time, even though you had to do it to get Kawhi, because that's what Kawhi demanded.
Yeah.
If you want Kawhi, you got to get me Paul George.
Yeah.
Give up way too much.
I like Shea. I think that was the biggest mistake that franchise has made. You've got a point guard of the future who you've just handed.
Given away.
I'd put him on par right now with Paul George.
It's there now.
Yeah, he's man,
just
similar
the overall,
numbers, just
exactly
good defensive player. Like
solid
man,
game.
You don't get many 6'6" guys who can play point guard like that. So
cover three positions.
Yeah, that's a bad move by the Clippers at this point. They still have time to redeem it, but I don't see them doing it this season. And I'd say that Kawhi leaves for nothing.
I think if they don't make the Western Conference Finals, that team is done.
I agree.
That's my mild take.
I agree.
But I don't see Kawhi being like, you know what, I'll stick it out. I like this situation. The fact that like what happened in Game 7 has to weigh on their minds. If they don't use it as motivation to improve, they've wasted 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was really disappointing to watch. I just wanted to touch on it briefly. Seeing Kawhi and Paul George just toss up brick after brick.
It was embarrassing, man. I couldn't believe it.
It was shocking to watch.
I couldn't believe it.
Meanwhile, Denver was just on a roll.
It made me feel really sick watching Paul George brick.
It made me sick
constantly.
Looking at Steve Ballmer sick.
Yeah.
Because he was done.
I really like Steve Ballmer too. I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that franchise has a lot of work to do to compete in the West. I don't think that they're beating the LeBron Lakers. I don't think they're coming close.
Lakers are too strong.
Like, I don't see them beating either of the two teams we've already mentioned. I think Jokic has that ball on a string against the Clippers. There's no big man on there that can even come close to stopping Jokic.
Like, Ibaka is an improvement defensively to that point over Harrell.
Yeah, 100%.
But Zubac and Ibaka, and if there's anyone else I'm missing, they're not stopping Jokic.
No, that's it.
Nobody is.
They're their big mans. That's their big mans.
Yeah.
That's their big men. And they're not getting any help defensively against Jokic.
That's right. The other thing is I think they should try to improve their point guard position. I like Patrick Beverley defensively.
Yeah.
I love his attitude. I don't like it. I love it.
Yeah.
Because he's scrappy. He's fought for everything he's earned.
Yeah. He's a Heat guy. Heat culture.
He started there.
Yeah, I know. And they got rid of him.
Yeah. See you later, Pat.
Yeah. Sorry, Bev.
He probably said some weird stuff.
Yeah.
I really feel like they need to trade Lou Williams. I think it's time to move on. He's such a liability defensively.
He is, man.
It's bad.
I like him as a six man, but he has to be on a roster where you can contribute defensively. Him and Harrell on the floor at the same time was bad defensively. Bad.
Amazing offensively, but bad defensively.
Yeah.
Lou has to be hidden in order to justify him being on the floor in a playoff game. And it's very hard these days because a lot of teams go versatile. They have multiple weapons. You'd have to kind of get lucky to get through a series with Lou Williams not negatively affecting you defensively.
He's another guy I could see being a spark plug for the Bucks off the bench. He might work on the Bucks, having as many defensive players as they do.
He's not on a crazy contract either.
I think he's on $8 million. That's off the top of the head. Do you want to just fact check me on that, Macca? He's a guy that probably would do better on another roster now. I think for the Clippers' sake and for Lou Will's sake, he was copping a lot of the blame for last year. I don't think he had anything to do with. He is on exactly 8. There you go. How good am I?
That's a good value contract.
It is. It's really good value. So he's someone that could be traded this season. Wouldn't be surprised if he was. And I want them to add D Rose. I really want D Rose on that roster.
I think you might have wrote in our little notes Terry Rozier as well.
I like Rozier too on that roster. He's a better playmaker than Pat Bev. He would be good off the bench. You'd probably start with Pat Bev for his defense off the jump. And then you'd bring on Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier's contract's ridiculous. So I don't know if you want to add that contract to that franchise, but he's not bad defensively. He's not good, but he's not bad. Very average NBA defender. Much better than Lou Williams. They have some moves to make to be competitive, I think, in the West.
Yeah.
Especially with the potential resurgence of the Warriors, the improvements that Phoenix have made in the backcourt.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of matchups there that just don't work against this Clippers team. So
Chris Paul versus Patrick Beverley is not good.
No, it's not good. It's not good. And for all of Pat Beverley's defensive ability, he's not guarding Chris Paul.
Chris Paul's he doesn't even care on offense about that.
Yeah.
Like he might find
gonna
Beverley
bother
as
him.
a pest on defense.
Yeah.
But offensively he's not even worried. He's just going to help off and do Chris Paul things.
Correct.
So I mean, last thing on there, I think the biggest loss for them in the offseason was Harrell. Honestly, might be obvious, but it's less about the points and the rebounds and all that stuff. It's the identity and the attitude, exactly, the spirit. Him and Pat Beverley were like when they when they took the Warriors to 6 games in 2019 in the first round.
It was him.
It was the two of them, and I mean Lou Williams was having his moments offensively, but the spirit he plays with is just second to none, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I actually think Harrell, just to boost the Lakers a little bit here, I think he's going to have a vendetta against the Clippers in those matchups because Harrell loves to go off against teams that just gave up on him.
He has the chip on his shoulder, which I really appreciate.
Oh, it's amazing.
Players like that, like watching, I love referring back to the Heat, but watching Jimmy Butler go off against Minnesota, against Chicago, like these are teams that absolutely tried to butcher this guy's name, and to see him play the way he does, and Philadelphia even, that, just watching him perform against those teams, you understand that, players that are successful in the NBA carry that chip. They carry that chip and they're like, well, you said that I wasn't this or this. I'm going to show you why I am. Yeah,
exactly.
And I like it. I appreciate that. And I hope Harrell has a really good season after the way that Paul George pretty much cursed him out.
Yeah.
I can see him having a really big season for the Lakers.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's less about the Lakers being better with him and more so the Clippers being worse because they lack his spirit.
Yeah,
and identity.
Yeah,
was a big part of the Clippers.